Recently, the descriptions of many popular commanders such as Charles Martel, Yi-Song, and Sun Tzu changed to indicate they are less effective than we would have expected. In this video, we're going to review the skills that changed and demonstrate how they actually work by running tests that will be very insightful. Stick around if you want to see the results of those tests and my thoughts on who the best Garrison commanders are, based on the fact that a lot of these commanders only now work for your city. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today we're going to be reviewing some of the text changes that are very critical to some very important Garrison commanders in Rise of Kingdoms. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and understand exactly how the game works, consider subscribing to the channel for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We're a sponsored content creator, and we were just as surprised as you were to see the Garrison-related skills change. The text changed in a very meaningful way. The Garrison skill used to indicate that, at least this is how I interpret it, that it would work in a flag or for your city. And now we're learning they are only going to work in your city. We're going to get a look here, and it says Charles Martel when he's leading the garrison of your own city. Garrison troops gain 10% increased attack, and the watchtower gains 10% defense. Well, this used to be much more vague, and my understanding is that skills like this, and the same is true of Yi-Song, now only works in your city. All the epic Garrison commanders, Sun Tzu, now only works in your city. Kusunoki now only works in your city. Uljimundak, only your city. Pelagius, only your city. This is a big deal because when you're in Season 1 of KVK or in the early game battling for structures, who should the best Garrison be? I used to think that these commanders were giving us a boost, and it turns out that they are not. Now, before we talk about which commander is actually the best or not, what I do want to mention is that, okay, theoretically, the only thing that has changed on these commanders is the text. In other words, it's always worked this way. However, now it's just clear exactly how it works. Okay, so if that is true, Yi-Song is still really good. Sun Tzu is still really good. Charles Martel is still really good, if for no other reason than the fact that they've got the Garrison tree, which in and of itself is very, very powerful. But I wanted to prove that the Garrison tree and that the skills work the way that we would expect them to work, that when we are garrisoning our city now, we should see a boost in stats. So I went and ran a bunch of tests. I ran these tests with my Alliance member Ruse. Thank you, my friend, for doing these with me. In order to understand how this worked, we did a couple things. First, we took a Charles Martel and Sun Tzu, who give special benefits for being in a garrison, specifically for your city. We took them in the open field, and we had Ruse just hit my troops in the open field so we could get a baseline of my stats. You can see here we had 157% infantry attack. That's the number we're going to watch because the third skill on Charles Martel should boost our attack by 10%. So theoretically, if I'm in my city, I should see 10% more stats there. We also wanted to see, of course, if we would get a boost in stats in a flag. So we put the Charles Martel and Sun Tzu into a flag. We had them hit the flag, and we saw no change to stats. Now, wait a minute. That's not right. That's not right because my Charles Martel has a Garrison build, and it says specifically that he should have 3% more health and defense and attack when I'm in a flag. He didn't have those bonus stats. Well, now my interest is really piqued, and we've got to run a few more tests, right? Something is fishy here. Did we find more broken talents, or is there something else going on? So we run the test again, and I say, hey, maybe because you only brought one troop and there's no actual combat, it's like I just counterattacked you and you lost your troops. Maybe we need a longer fight. So I say, bring 50 troops. Well, you brought 50,000, completely wiped me out in one hit. So then we had to do it again. And it was like, no, not 50,000. I appreciate your dedication to the test. 50 troops. So we run the test again with just 50 troops, and I'm down 3% attack this time. Actually, I have an explanation for that. I lost War Frenzy, so this is fine. But what it means is that none of these Garrison-related talents are showing up in this battle log either. And there's more to this. We're going to talk about it in a second. So then we ran another test, and we said, hold the phone. We know that YSS has talents specifically related to being in a flag. Actually, it's skills. Has skills specifically related to being in a garrison, okay? And we should see the boost in stats in the structure, right? So if I go and I look at YSS skills, we can see the 4th skill gives 20% increased attack when you're in a garrison. So when I go in this flag, I want to see 20% more attack, right? So first we battle in the field, and our attack is 173%. Then we put those troops into a flag, and our attack is still 173%. What I took away from this is that skills and talents that are conditional do not show up in this part of the battle log. And they also don't show up in this part of the battle log. So we really have no clue if we're actually getting the benefit from these, other than doing some prolonged testing where we measure the number of Sev wounds and see if we got a benefit. You see what I mean? We have no indication anywhere if these talents and skills are applying at all, which is of course somewhat concerning. We then ran 2 more tests to really thread the needle on this one. Then we said, okay, well, let's run this again. I'm going to leave the alliance. Let's put my Charles and Sun Tzu in the field. Let's have you hit it. Then I'm going to go in my city. You hit that. So we did exactly that. I went into the field. I had 128% attack. I left my alliance, so no alliance tech, no, I guess we have war camp tech maybe. I don't know. That was the result, 128% attack. In my city, we had 128% attack. So we're not seeing the uncrowned king show up in here either. So none of the commanders we looked at had their garrison-related skills or talents appear in the battle log, either in the buff section or the log portion. Now, this is interesting because when I was running Attila Takeda rallies, I also noticed when I tried to account for all the stats that conditional skills do not count in the battle log. They don't show up in the troop buffs portion. I guess it should be more specific. So the one that I'm referring to specifically is on Takeda. In Gentle as the Forest, it says, when troops led by this commander consist of only cavalry, they gain 40% increased defense. In my experience testing this previously, this 40% doesn't show up in the log because it's conditional, which is weird. I would expect it to show up, if not in the buffs, then maybe in the log portion to say, like, you add all cavalry, you got the 40% boost. So we don't even know if we're getting it or not getting it, couldn't tell you. So where does this leave us with garrison commanders and things that only apply when they're in the city? Because I have no way whatsoever to verify how this actually works in game, let's take it at face value and assume that it only works in the city. If that is the case, then I think there is a new garrison we need to consider in Season 1, early game of Kingdom versus Kingdom. And I find myself surprised to fall back on none other than the versatility commander, El Cid. Now you may be thinking, whoa, Chisgule, seriously, El Cid? And I'm thinking that Esong and El Cid might be one of the best possible garrisons in the early game in Rise of Kingdoms. Why is that? Given that none of our garrison commanders actually work in flags in the early game, and there are commanders that do work in strongholds and flags, right? Like Wu Zetian, to give an example, now specifically says garrison of your city or a stronghold, right? YSS, or Theodora, who we were looking at earlier, garrison of your city or a stronghold. You get the benefit in both of those places, even though we can't prove that in the log or the buffs. Now, El Cid, given that, these other commanders aren't getting a skill that we would have expected them to get, at best they have 3 skills, these other commanders. Like a Charles Martel gets 3 skills. Well, El Cid gets 4, and let me explain. First skill, very good. 1000 damage factor, disarms the target, which disables the active skills and normal attacks. That's very, very nice. In fact, I guess it should be more precise. They don't call that a disarm anymore. Didn't they used to call it a disarm? I don't know. It doesn't matter. They can't use the active skill or normal attack for 1 second. The second skill, 10% chance to do 1000 damage factors. Very nice. Third skill, you don't care about the march speed, but 20% archer defense is really good. Look, on Charles Martel, that Garrison skill gives you 10% attack. Well, this is 20% defense. That's quite nice. Next skill, when you're below 50%, which for a prolonged Garrison situation is going to happen very quickly, you get 25% more damage. That's really good. The expertise skill is, in my opinion, extremely lackluster. 10% extra stats, though, is nice for your archers. And you also have 2% extra damage to infantry. I don't know who rallies with infantry in Season 1 of KVK. I don't recall that being a thing. But still, the amount of stats and volume of goodness that you get from El Cid is actually really very good. And if we look at this expertise skill, 10% of stats over here, and the rest of it is probably not going to matter. Take a look at Charles Martel, who's probably someone that everybody's using for Garrison in early KVKs. Well, he's only giving you 10% more stats and a bunch of march speed, which doesn't matter for Garrison. See where this is going? So if you're running an E-Song with El Cid defense in the early game in Rise of Kingdoms, not for defending your city, but for defending a stronghold, that's a fort, holy site, maybe even a pass. Like, I haven't done the testing to demonstrate if this is actually the jam, but I'm inclined to believe that this new information that we have about the way these commanders works would be very compelling for an El Cid secondary or even primary when defending a structure. And I take it back on the primary. You still want a Garrison commander primary for the Garrison tree because these talents are really good. Of course, I can't prove they're really good. I can't prove they're really good in a stronghold because I can't demonstrate that they actually are taking effect. Oh well. Oh well. Theoretically, you can prove that they work for a city-related defense by using the expedition, but there's no battle log to really get a read on what exactly happened. Now, all of this makes me a little uncomfortable. I would much prefer if there was a way to actually see in the log, in the buffs, that we were actually getting these benefits, because there are some commanders that still, in my opinion, are not written in a way that is accurate. I'll give an example with Constance. It says that when she finishes gathering from a resource point, receive an extra 10% resources gathered in resource packs. I don't think that's working that way, but I could be wrong. I haven't tested it well enough to actually prove conclusively how this works. But when I looked in my report, it was indicating that I had plus resources, not resource packs. I don't know, maybe it's just showing wrong. I'm just a little concerned that everything does what it says it does, and I just like to be able to prove it, you know? Because the reality is that I've been playing this game for a very long time, not understanding how this commander works. The good news is that we know Lilith is now focused on making these explanations a good bit more clear, and I hope they will continue to do that into the future, because some of these things still aren't terribly clear. I've had people insist, like, Chisgule, you freaking noob! How do you not know that, you know, the troop damage boost is only for normal and counter attacks and not skill attacks? And I'm like, really? Are you sure? And the people are like, everybody knows that. I'm like, are you sure that that's how that works? Because, like, I'll tell you something. This has, like, the same language as the other thing. All troops under their command have a, you know, 40% increase to damage. And, like, I'm 99% sure that works on skill damage. I used a con secondary with this, and ooh, the damage was crazy, okay? So I'm pretty sure that that is all damage and not, like, some normal attack, counter attack weirdness. I'm just giving this example to say, thank goodness that Lilith is focused on actually giving us more depth to these explanations so that we understand exactly how these things work, and not only more depth, but much more precision. All in all, I think that Charles Martel, Yi-Song, and Sun Tzu are all still phenomenal commanders, particularly for defending your city. And if you're in an early KVK, you're probably still going to use them for defending a flag as well. But I do think that if you've got somebody with the expertise Yi-Song and Cid, that you ought to go test that and see how it performs. Does this mean that Sun Tzu is still the best epic? Does someone else take the title? I think the answer is he's still probably the best epic, and someone doesn't take the title from him. He's still freaking amazing, okay? He's still amazing, but he's not as good as I thought he was. And the reality is, He's just as good as he was before, presumably. Now we just understand how he actually works. Ay, ay, ay. What an interesting topic. If you enjoyed this video, consider throwing a like onto it. And check out my card up in the top. It's going to give you a playlist about city defense. I think it's really helpful if you are preparing your city to take a rally or be swarmed or to get hit when you weren't expecting it. Of course, the best garrison defense is a peace shield, unbeatable. However, if you want to take some damage and inflict some damage back potentially, yeah, having good garrison commanders matters a lot. And I put my money where my mouth is on that. I've currently got YSS and Theodora on the wall, and I've even got a decent-ish set of backup gear because all my best gear is, of course, on my Canyon commanders. Subscribe to the channel if you found this entertaining or helpful. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.